Good morning, PT on Ice crew. Happy Thursday. My name is Dr. Sarah Heron, and I will be your host today from Seattle, Washington. I am the lead faculty for the Out-of-Network Division, and I am joining you today on Leadership Thursday. So thanks for joining. I've got Instagram here, Facebook here. Doing my best to look at both cameras today. I'll try not to spill you over like I did last time. All right, so a couple of quick announcements really quick before we get started on out-of-network topics. First, as Dustin mentioned yesterday, there's the modern management of the older adult cohort starting in June, so make sure to get registered for that. That's an awesome course to get started in. And May 4th and 5th, Mitch will be in Victoria, BC, which is in Canada, close to me, doing the Clinical Management of the Fitness Athlete Live course. And I will be actually TAing for him since they are in my area, and I'm super excited for that. So that's in a couple weeks, still room available. Let's see, I think those are all my announcements. The next cohort for the out-of-network step-by-step class is already starting to be registered for, and that will be in July. So please make sure to sign up. These classes have been really, really fun, really, really helpful. Basically, it's just a group of brains coming together, brainstorming how things are working for them. I'm going to take you through the steps, the legalities, all of the business boring stuff, but then we get to talk a lot about mindset and just sort of like how do we put this into practice. Okay, so why does out-of-network practice work? There's lots of detail about this in the course, and so I want to be clear that it's really, really hard to cover this in 15 minutes. I did get your feedback in terms of like what you wanted me to cover, so we're going to get into that. But first, generally, the topics that I always come back to every time I do a lecture about this are the things that we already know. So reimbursement is decreasing. We know this, we see this, it's happening steadily, right? It may not be as prevalent in certain areas as others, but it is happening. Now, it's important to note that the patient may not know this. They may not care. Okay, so we see that as practitioners, and that's really important for us to be aware of as business owners and as staff PTs, because that may affect our pay, but the patient may not know or care. Okay, so let's remember that. What they do care about is that their deductibles are going up and their copays are going up. So that's something that we can use to our advantage in terms of checking off what may matter to the patient. Okay, so they're already used to paying more money for their healthcare in many situations. Now, again, this isn't happening across the board quite yet, but it is happening. Okay. Additionally, we are seeing success in niche practices, and we're going to talk about that in this discussion. That is something that I've had success in, and most of the cash practices that I see that are growing or are stable have some sort of niche or specialty population that they are working with. So I think that's really important to note. Additionally, we are going to see premier care versus subpar or standard care. Now, again, this isn't the case in every situation. I've seen and I've worked in network models where really, really good care was given. So we need to be careful in saying that out-of-network practice is the only way to do that and to achieve that, because the patients may not have seen that. And if we're asking them to spend money, we need to make sure that we are aware that maybe they didn't have to spend money or a lot of money before, and they were able to get really good care. Okay, and then finally, we've got motivated practitioners. So if you're watching this, if you're part of ICE, then you are exactly the type of PT that we want going into cash practice. Okay, so we go into a lot of detail in the course on those aspects. If you're not a part of VICE, Virtual ICE yet, definitely join that, because that's, side note, that's a great way to get some information and really affordable CEUs. But I just did a talk on out-of-network on this, and we went into some detail on those things. Why doesn't cash practice work? There's lots of reasons it doesn't work. And I think that this is really important for us to remember and think about and reflect on if we're thinking about starting a cash practice, or if we have and we're having a hard time getting things off the ground. So PT may not be valued by the consumer. So in many cases, patients don't know why they want PT. They don't really understand why. Maybe they were sent by their practitioner, their physician, and they don't really value what we can do or what we can offer because maybe they haven't seen that, right? And so it is our job to present to them what physical therapy can be, what it is, what it should be, and make sure that we are providing that. The main thing I think that happens is that in cash practices that aren't working or that won't be a great option in a certain area are cash practices that don't set themselves apart from the rest of the pack. Okay, so like I mentioned, I've worked in settings where great care was given one-on-one for an hour, right? Really excellent practitioners, and we took insurance. So what sets me apart from that if a patient is weighing these two options? So we need to be really clear about what that is. Additionally, disposable income, which we often say will be helpful in these situations, that doesn't necessarily mean that these patients are willing or wanting to spend money on their healthcare. Disposable income often means that they have a good job, and that job often means that they have really good benefits. And really good benefits, they're going to want to use them. So we need to be careful to think that people who have a lot of money or disposable income would be willing to spend it on healthcare. Okay. Additionally, patients may not have experienced the pitfalls of the current healthcare model or current physical therapy model. So when we talk about like mill PTs or mill settings where patients are coming in and out, they're working with aides, they're only seeing the PT for 15 minutes, maybe they're double booked, they're coming in 3 times a week, they're using eStim, Ultra, whatever. The patient, that may not be true for every patient in network, right? And so when you are in an area where there's good practice happening and potentially good reimbursement happening, I know this is happening in certain areas of the country, then it's really difficult to start a cash practice without something special. So the only thing that sets you apart cannot be that you don't take insurance. Okay, so I want that to sink in. You need to have something different. So if that patient hasn't experienced the pitfalls, the downsides of everything that we've been talking about in the physical therapy world for the last few years as we broach this topic of out of network, if they haven't experienced that, then what are they looking for? What are you offering them? Okay, and then finally, prices don't match the market, right? Prices don't match the market. Maybe the niche that you're trying to offer is saturated in your area. So lots of things that we need to reflect on as we're looking at starting cash practices or as we're looking at why they potentially aren't taking off or sustaining. Okay, so what do you guys want to know? Those topics, we can talk about each of those things for 5 hours, right? So briefly, that's kind of what I want you to keep in the background. Okay, and definitely sign up for the course. Keep listening to the ICE information. I'll keep coming on here and talking about this stuff. But what I wanted to address today is the questions that you guys had asked when I posed my little quiz on Instagram. So the questions were, how can new grads get involved? What are marketing strategies to use? How do we determine our rates for cash practice? All things mindset. Okay, and then considerations for starting a cash practice such as location, clientele, niche services, rent costs, etc. So those are all very broad topics and all very important. So today I want to touch on sort of branding and marketing, and that crosses into mindset, new grad involvement, niche services, and your ideal clientele. Okay, so side note, however, this should be a given to all of us, but one of my patients who follows us on Instagram responded as well to one of these, or to one of the answers that was proposed. So one of the answers to my question was, I want to know about considerations such as location, clientele, niche services, rent costs, etc. My patient wrote, what about being a badass PT? And so I think it's really important to note that my patient's perspective was she doesn't give a shit about any of this stuff. She cares that she wanted a really good physical therapist who met her needs. Okay. And so at the end of the day, you've got to know your shit, right? So we've talked about this a lot in ICE period. We talked about this at the sampler. We've talked about this in fitness athlete. Like, you need to be the person that that patient is looking for. Okay. So I think that's just something to note, that we get hung up on all of these details of how to make this practice work the best. And at the end of the day, what really matters is being a really good clinician. Okay. The best marketing that I've seen is word of mouth marketing. Okay. So word of mouth marketing is going to lead me to more and more patients. So this patient that I see, she actually is a power lifter, which is not my specialty, but because of my involvement in the CrossFit community, and not just me saying I treat CrossFit, but my actual involvement in the community. I'm an athlete, I'm a coach, I actively put information out there for that community and for those athletes. She found us that way. Okay, and then what happens is she sends her neighbor who has knee pain with gardening. And then that person comes to see us, not because we're offering one-on-one care and hour-long appointments, or even that we are specializing in CrossFit, but because her friend told her that we are really good PTs and she wants to see us because that's what was important to her. So I think all of this sort of blends together. One thing isn't more important than the other, but we need to remember that at the end of the day, being a really good clinician matters. And that's why you're involved with ICE, because we're all bettering our skills. If you ever think that you've learned it all, then you have a lot to learn. Okay. All right. So additionally, in my area in Seattle, there is a premier physical therapist who specializes in women's health. And she charges like $250 per visit. Okay, now her niche is super specialized. She is, like I said, she's the premier person. Okay, and her patients are looking for her because they want that service. They want her. Okay, so she's very, very targeted in her niche practice. And so that's another example of where being very specific about what she can offer the patient in terms of skill is really important. Okay, so that kind of takes us into our branding concepts. Those are just a couple examples of marketing in a way that's not marketing our profession. Okay, we're marketing the patient. Like, what does this patient want? Okay, they don't care about all this reimbursement stuff that we're dealing with. We care a lot because that's our profession and that's shitty. Okay, and it's okay to care about that, and it's okay to want to work in a better setting and to want work-life balance, and all of these things that we talk about, which lead us to wanting to start our own practice or join an existing practice that's a better model for us. But we need to remember that those patients, they don't necessarily care. Okay, so we talk about this a lot. I talk about this a lot in the courses. We have been talking about this in ICE. Zach Long and I have talked extensively about these topics of not selling physical therapy. And we're seeing this a lot in the cash world. We're seeing that the marketing strategy is to tell the patient, well, I'm going to treat you for an hour. I'm going to treat you one-on-one. You're not going to get any modalities. You are not going to see anybody except for me, and I'll get you better in 3 visits. Okay, I would like to use my insurance over here. So I think if you look at almost like any website, any physical therapy website, I've done a lot of research looking at various websites. One of the first things that I see is the PT's list of accomplishments. Don't care. Why do I care? Okay, I also see all the insurance that they take. So if a patient wants physical therapy from a clinic, maybe not even a physical therapist in specific, but a clinic that takes their insurance, that's what they're looking for. Okay, so when they are searching, we need to present them with something that they're looking for. Okay, they're not typing in one-on-one physical therapy for an hour. Okay, they're probably typing in back pain with golfing or how to return to exercise postpartum. Okay, so in our marketing strategies, we need to be really clear about that. So one way to do this, and this can happen early in your profession. So I talked about being a really good clinician. You're working on that. And that may come in a setting where there's other PTs and you're not working for yourself. And that's great. And if you want to do that and be really bold and start your own company, like, kudos, I will help you do that. That's awesome. But if you want to work on becoming a really good clinician in a setting where you're supported that way, that's great. And what you can do is start to think in your head about how I'm going to brand what I have to offer. Okay. So we've been talking about use of the word avatar. Okay. And you can think about it this way when you're thinking about who your ideal client is. Okay, you literally come up with your avatar, which is an example of a person, your ideal client. Okay, and when you really dial this in, the marketing becomes easy. Okay, so at Aero Physical Therapy, our avatar really is Beth and I, 30-something athletic individuals who value health and fitness and want to get better at our sport. Okay. With a little bit of hip pain. Your avatar likely isn't somebody who's looking for a solution that offers them one-on-one care, a life free of injections, medication, surgery without the hassles of the insurance company. They aren't gonna be looking for that, okay? They're probably this 30-something athlete, CrossFit athlete, who has a great job, really wants to value her time in the gym, and it's her only time away from the stress of work and family, but her shoulder's bugging because she's been working on muscle ups, okay? But you need to know about muscle ups. That she doesn't care if it's one-on-one. In fact, she would be happy to go somewhere and use her copay and see somebody for 15 minutes if the aide knew about muscle ups. Okay, so we need to really be thinking about what's important here. Why this is why cash practice works. It doesn't necessarily work because reimbursement is high reimbursement is low and deductibles are high and all of these fundamental like facts about our healthcare system. I think people are used to spending money on a lot of stuff. Okay, I live in one of the most expensive cities in Seattle, or in the world probably, and people still don't want to pay for physical therapy because if they don't value it, or I'm not offering what they need, and I can't offer what everyone needs, but if I'm not, then I'm not the right person for them. And I know plenty of people with plenty of money who want to use their insurance because they have good benefits and they can. Okay, and then lucky for them, in Seattle, there's still a lot of really, really quality practices that take insurance, and I can refer them that way. And then those practices refer their CrossFitters to us because they know that that's what that patient needs. So I think as we're thinking about like mindset and we're thinking about our clientele and we're thinking about what can we do as a new grad, how can we get involved in this space, this is where it starts. We need to start thinking about what is it that I have to offer, or how can I cultivate my skills to be able to offer what I'm interested in. So I think a lot of people are interested in that fitness athlete, and that's awesome, but you've got to get involved in that community. You can't just drop into a gym and hand them your cards and say, I treat CrossFit. It's not going to work. Okay. You've got to drop in and take a class, and then you need to start putting out some content. So one thing I recommend to new practitioners especially, or people who are thinking about starting a practice but aren't quite ready, is to start creating some content now. So start marketing essentially to this group of people that you want to treat. Use Instagram, start blogging. This doesn't have to be something that happens through your company. This can just be on the side, and then you become this brand. Okay, so I hope that helps. I think that that's a good place to start, and I'll be curious to see you guys all on social media. I think that's a really, really good place to start. So keep asking me these questions, and I'll keep coming up with topics to discuss. As we've mentioned, this is an 8-week course. It could be a year-long course, right? So it's really hard to touch on all of this in detail, but if you do have particulars that you want to talk about, I will make sure to let that happen. Okay, have a wonderful rest of your week. It's almost Friday, and don't forget to go to PT on Ice, or excuse me, the Institute of Clinical Excellence website. Scroll all the way to the bottom and click on that Hump Day Hustling email so that you make sure that you're getting our weekly non-spam email. It has 5 things each week that we want to share with you guys. So it's a really good newsletter and a good mailing list to be on. Okay, so nice to see you. Until next time.
Hey, thanks for tuning in to the PT on Ice Daily Show. If you enjoyed this content, head on over to iTunes and leave us a review. And be sure to check us out on Facebook and Instagram at the Institute of Clinical Excellence. If you're interested in getting plugged into more ICE content on a weekly basis while earning CEUs from home, check out our virtual ICE online mentorship program at ptonice.com. While you're there, sign up for our Hump Day Hustling newsletter for a free email every Wednesday morning with our top 5 research articles and social media posts that we think are worth reading. Head over to ptonice.com and scroll to the bottom of the page to sign up.